Greetings, my fellow Tamrielites. Welcome to the channel, or welcome back. When people talk about pickpocketing in ESO, I frequently hear a particular misconception. If, like most people, you are laboring under this false assumption, it is costing you time and probably causing you a lot of unnecessary frustration. So let's clear that up today. People tend to believe an NPC spawns with 3 items in their virtual pockets, which can be stolen by all players, like a treasure chest with 3 items or a crafting node with 3 loads of mats. That statement is straight up not true. To start with the basics, each NPC has access to 2 different kinds of loot tables. The first table is ordinary monster-type loot, similar to what you would get from killing a low-level mob in the zone. That loot will include boring things like a leveled gold or maybe a piece of basic gear, but only 1 item. However, when you pickpocket, you pull off of a different loot table, and the rules change. Once you pickpocket, that NPC is now, for you, an instanced container with 2 potential inventory pulls remaining. I said before that most people think that NPC pockets are like treasure chests or crafting nodes, and that isn't true. When I say that they are instanced, what I mean is that they are like backpacks or cupboards. You know how everyone running through a public dungeon can loot the same backpack? Well, that is also true of pickpocketing NPCs. I sometimes see in zone chat someone will be upset because a bunch of NPCs are empty after only 1 or 2 pulls, and the person assumes that someone else is pickpocketing 1 item and then leaving. But you know how sometimes all your buddies can loot a backpack but you can't because it's empty for you? Well, NPCs can have empty loot slots too. It is far more rare for an NPC to come up with a null on their inventory loot table, but it can happen, and once it does, they are empty regardless of how many pulls you have made. So if you see an NPC come up empty early, it isn't another player's fault, it's just RNGesus messing with you. I know. You want to see proof. Let me show you. I had a friend film with me to illustrate this. Notice that he and I are not grouped. That's important. If you group, this won't work, and I'll talk more about why later. However, because we are not grouped, my loot log add-on can't show you his loot to prove when he gets his first pickpocketing pull off the NPC. But we can see the NPC go into suspicious status when my friend's grab is successful, and he's going to post his item into chat. So that's 1 item for him. While I wait for the NPC status to clear, my friend is off to make his first grab from the next target. Depending on the arrangement and density of the NPCs, he might be able to make his first pull off 3 or 4 NPCs before circling back around to the one we started on. Speaking of whom, I have now made my first pull. If I'm wrong, then this NPC only has 1 item left total. If I'm right, then my friend and I each have 2 more rolls on that NPC's loot table. There is my friend making his second pull, and because he's done, he will now use his Blade of Woe. And we can already see that the body is glowing. Remember that I said pickpocketing turns the NPC into a 3-item container instance to you? Well, when I go to loot the body, there are my other 2 items in my NPC container waiting for me. So not only did my friend's pulls not affect my loot, nor mine his, I got all 3 items, yet only had to wait for and complete 1 grab. Incidentally, the easiest and fastest grab. And note too that my friend wasn't waiting around for the suspicious status to clear. Instead, he moved to another NPC and made a quick first pull there, which is what I was doing in the opening of the video. If you can let go of the idea that you need to camp or guard your NPC while pickpocketing, and instead keep rotating through clusters of NPCs, you will drastically increase your efficiency whether you are working with 2 or more people like this, or whether you are working solo. 2 people can definitely be faster in pickpocketing, more so if each of you is working separate groups of NPCs and you switch back and forth, not in a circle following each other tightly like I'm doing here. The efficient way can get really confusing on the screen though, with all of the zipping back and forth, and so I decided to prioritize visual clarity and make it very clear what I was doing. By the way, I should mention too, that this is a good way to help a friend learn how to do pickpocketing. The more experienced player can go first, picking the route and the targets and keeping an eye out for guards, and do the second pull in the Blade of Woe, so the less experienced player only has to do the first easiest pull. I said before that this won't work if you're grouped. Let me show you why. We'll do the demonstration again, grouped this time. He'll make his grab, then I will make mine. But when he uses his Blade of Woe, I won't get 2 items, just 1. I don't know if it has to do with the loot tables or the grouping loot protocols or what. I just know that if you're grouped, most of the time you'll only get your next one pull, the second item, but not your third. Having said that, here's a sort of blooper reel of my first attempt to film how you only get one item when you're grouped. I don't know whether to blame RNG or Murphy for this, but I feel like the fact that my shot was ruined because I got too much loot is some kind of achievement unlocked sort of moment. Point being, when grouped in this situation, it is possible to get both of your remaining items, but I promise you that is not the standard result. All my footage here is with one other person, but I have done guild events to teach this, and I've had a dozen people line up behind one NPC. After each person pulled once, the final person used their Blade of Woe and everybody looted their remaining 2 items. Share this video with guildmates and try it out as an event yourself. It's for real and it's fun. It's pretty easy to coordinate this with a friend over Discord, but even if you aren't in communication with someone else pickpocketing in the same area, if everyone in our community is aware of how pickpocketing works, then not only do we not have to be in competition with each other when we're doing it, we can actually help each other when we're doing it. And on a purely selfish note, let me add that this also means that no one needs to yell at me if I'm working in the same area, flitting around like a butterfly sipping from all the flowers, because I am not messing up anyone else's pulls. I swear I'm not. While I'm clearing up misconceptions about pickpocketing, let me address another. I frequently hear people say that they never get special items that can drop from pickpocketing, like the motif pages in Vardenfell. When I hear that, I ask if they are doing 2 pulls before using the Blade of Woe to claim the 3rd item, and without fail they say no, they don't like waiting for the suspicious status to clear, so they use the Blade of Woe after the first pull and only get 2 items from each NPC, and that is the problem. The rare items drop on the 3rd pull. Very, very rarely I see one on the 2nd pull, but that's like getting a cipher or winning the lottery. It's nice, but it is not a viable plan for farming motif pages or patterns. So if you just hate waiting for the suspicious status to clear, rather than staying with that one NPC, work several NPCs in an area, making 1 pull from each before circling back around for your 2nd pull. It is not only faster, it is also a safety net if someone comes in and uses their Blade of Woe while you're circling. Not only have you not lost those NPCs, it actually just saves you time. Just go around and grab your other 2 items off the glowing NPCs. The caveat here is time and distance. Don't work too large an area. Start small with, say, 3 NPCs or so, and then expand out. At some point you will begin to have a problem with decay if you get too far away from them, or if too much time passes between when you've pickpocketed them, and you won't reliably get your drops from them. If you see that happening, then narrow your scope again back down to a smaller area and faster pulling. The last thing I want to add is that if you haven't already tried thieving or pickpocketing in ESO, you really should give it a go. If for no other reason than for the items that show up on the thieving loot tables. They are endlessly creative, amazing sources of mini lore, and they are wonderful flavor text items. Each of my characters has a pocket full of keepsakes or traveling gear that they have that are all items I've laundered over the years. I absolutely love them. It's a little thing that it adds so much depth to the game. I'm hoping that many of these things will be made into housing items in the future. And that is a wrap. Thanks very much for joining me today. I appreciate your time and I hope this was helpful. Until next time, may all your loot be elite.